New York Giants fans, Darren Waller is back in the NFL, but not for the Giants. Odell Beckham Jr. seems like people want him to be back with the Giants. There's a lot of things going on. It's the offseason. I'm Coach Gene Clemons, and I have a giant issue. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another edition of A Giant Issue. I am Coach Gene Clemons, New York Giants on that side. That's where you get all of your New York Giants news and information. Make sure you go over there and see everything. We're getting towards the end of our 90-man roster series. We're counting down the numbers up until the beginning of the season. We've got position group things coming, and obviously, right, we're starting to kick off all of the good stuff with our podcast and what we'll be having going as we inch closer and closer to season 2. That's why it's been a little bit more choppy lately, because season 2, when the new training camp comes about, is when we will officially have season 2 rolling. But I didn't want to leave you guys naked until then, so I want to pop in and say what's up. There's been some good news lately in Big Blue Nation. Darren Waller is back in the NFL. And I thought about how I felt about this since it's happened. It's been a few days now since it happened. I thought about how I felt about Darren Waller being back in the NFL, and more specifically about Darren Waller's time with the New York Giants. I 1000% believe that the reason why Darren Waller retired wasn't because he wanted to retire from the NFL. When I spoke to Darren Waller in Las Vegas last summer, when he was doing his work for Icy Hot and on their team, when I spoke to him, he didn't sound like a man who was ready to retire. He sounded like he sounded for a long time. He's a man who has many interests. But what I kept coming back to is him feeling like he understood his body and what his body needed in order to be its best out there. He told a story about when he got injured with the Giants and what that injury and how he handled it and how it played a role in the rest of his season. He said, I had felt something, and if I had shut it down then and stayed out a week, maybe 2, I probably would have been good for the rest of the season. But instead, I tried to play through it. I aggravated it more, and then I was out for a group of time, like for a number of games. I find that to be interesting because I can relate, and I think all athletes can relate to when they feel an injury, when there's an injury coming, or they feel like their body's just not responding in the manner that they want it to respond. We've been conditioned to believe that we have to play through injuries, play through pain, and to a certain extent you do. It's football, right? You have to play through pain. You have to figure out what pain is endurable and what pain is not endurable. But playing through injuries without understanding whether or not you can further injure something is dangerous. Let's not forget that we live in a time where we have the information. The NFL, if nothing else, they've got all of the doctors and the machines and to be able to diagnose anything. A lot of NFL players have been diagnosed with major illnesses or major things that have nothing to necessarily do with playing football, that they've been able to recover from because they had the NFL to be able to run all of these tests and do the blood work and do the body scans and everything else. So it is a testament to them. And so with this information, we should be able to go, hey, you know what? If I play, there's a XYZ percentage chance that I could hurt it more. But if I stay out for a week, that percentage drops by half. Or if I stay out 2 weeks, that percentage drops by 85%. You know what? Now we have no more information. We're able to rehab better. That didn't happen with Darren Waller. There was another thing that I think was very interesting in what happened with Darren Waller and why he didn't continue to play for the Giants and why he chose to retire. I think the way they utilized Darren Waller was something that was not the way they sold the job to Darren Waller. When I was talking to him, he talked about the fact that, or I discussed with him that when I watched training camp, they were using him like Wan'Dale Robinson in the passing game, the way in which he was running all of these motions and swing passes and screen passes, getting the ball into his hand and allowing him to operate after the catch, which I believe is still one of his attributes, that athleticism after the catch, right? And they didn't do that when the regular season came. Now, there were injuries to the quarterback, injuries to the offensive line. He talked about having to stay in and help block more because that's what they were trying to do at the beginning. And so everything that he had been sold on as the reason to want to come and perform in New York, all of those things were taken away. All of a sudden, those things which he thought were going to make up the bulk of what he was doing as a football player in New York never came to fruition. That would sour me on wanting to play. So if I had other options, if I had other interests, it might make me want to cultivate those other interests more than just staying with a team that I didn't necessarily feel would be in my best interest going forward, or just be fun and exciting to play for. So he retired. Now, I will admit to you, I was surprised to see that he came back. I was surprised to see that he came back, and not surprised at the same time. I was surprised because, normally a lot of times when the NFL's done with you, or when you say you're done with the NFL's done with you, right? Usually when you say, hey, I'm done with the NFL, what you're really saying is I don't want the NFL to be done with me. And so it seems that Darren Waller really was done, but the NFL wasn't done with him. And so he comes back, and because he's back and he's still property, which sounds really weird, the rights to him, I guess, still lie with the Giants. They were able to trade him to Miami. Now, within there's been a lot of people talking as if Joe Shane is some type of genius because he was able to get a draft pick for Darren Waller. Like, never forget, he gave up draft picks to get Darren Waller, right? So, I don't care that the Dolphins traded the Giants a 6th-round pick for Waller and a conditional 7th-round pick. Am I supposed to be impressed by the fact that Joe Shane got a 6th-round pick for Darren Waller? No. No. I don't find that to be like fly in any way. And I'll tell you why. Because for me, I think about the way they traded for Darren Waller. Right? The Giants traded for Darren Waller 2 years ago. They wanted Darren Waller to be their key piece, right? So I think it's interesting that they traded Darren Waller, and when they traded for him, they gave up a 3rd-round draft pick. So they gave up a 3rd-round draft pick. They got Darren Waller. Darren Waller played for a season, retired. Then they traded essentially their 3rd-round draft pick and a 7th-round draft pick for a 6th-round draft pick, and somehow you guys are telling me that Joe Schoen is a genius. Once again, I want to say that, and I want to say it like, right? I want you to understand what you want me to ingest. Joe Schoen traded a 3rd-round draft pick for Darren Waller. Darren Waller played a season. What? Right? He played a season, then retired, came back a year later, and then they traded Darren Waller, who's essentially that 3rd-round draft pick, and another draft pick, a 7th-round draft pick, for a 6th-round draft pick. And all I keep hearing in places is, oh my God, Joe Schoen's done it again. No, it was a bad trade to start with, right? And it's not a bad trade because Darren Waller wasn't necessarily worth it. It was a bad trade because of the way it resulted. So that's a bad trade. If the trade ended, like Joe Schoen giving up Leonard Williams for a draft pick, people look at that as a good trade. No, it's not, because Leonard Williams is still an all-pro caliber defensive tackle, and you don't have an all-pro caliber defensive tackle to go next to your all-pro caliber defensive tackle. Right? That's where it comes down to for me. That's where I make the distinguish that's why I distinguish what a good trade and a bad trade is. Did you get better than what you traded away? The answer is no. People are still talking about the Kadarius Toney thing, and I keep saying, well, who's been better than Kadarius Toney when Kadarius Toney was at his height on the field for the Giants? Never mind that he wasn't out there very long. Never mind that he had issues, right? But when Kadarius Toney was on the field for the Giants at his height, what we saw him do against the Cowboys, who else on this roster has the ability to do that outside of Malik Neighbors, who was not traded for Kadarius Toney? So did they really win the trade if the Kadarius Toney trade nets a 3rd-rounder that they then turn into Darren Waller, who plays for a season, then comes back and they trade him for a 6th and a 7th-rounder for a 6th-round pick? Did Joe Schoen really win that trade? Or are we just going to keep giving him credit because he's making moves? That's what it feels like. And so now Darren Waller goes to Miami, who just got rid of their tight end from last year, Jonnu Smith, who they gave 100+ targets. And I know Darren Waller saying to himself, I'm better than Jonnu Smith. And so this makes a lot of sense for Darren Waller to come back to go to that Miami Dolphins offense if he believes that he's going to be able to get the targets that Jonnu Smith got. He's taller. He has a longer wingspan, probably more straight line fast, right? We know he's tough. So if they're going to have that type of offense down in Miami, then for Darren Waller, it makes perfect sense. But it makes you wonder, did the Giants not even think about keeping Darren Waller? Are we supposed to just believe that Theo Johnson is going to be better than Darren Waller? We know, we know that the other tight ends are not, right? Do we think Fedoni is going to be Fedoni? Excuse me. Do we think Fedoni is going to be better than Darren Waller, the 7th-round pick? Like, was there ever a conversation about saying, "Hey, Darren, we really love to get you back in here with better quarterback play, with more weapons on the perimeter now for you, still with the run game, but with a better offensive line to block for the quarterback. We'd love to get you in here and show you what you could be in this offense. And hey, if you don't agree, now you can, we'll trade you. We'll trade you somewhere." Or did they go, hey, hey, Darren Waller wants to come back. What can we get for him? Because I feel like there's an opportunity wasted there, and I have no other choice but to go back to the GM and say, hey, GM, what were you thinking? You got a 6th-round pick for a 3rd-round pick and a 7th-round pick. What were you thinking? Oh, well, if he stays retired, we get nothing. Well, who thinks like that? Who thinks like that? He was already retired. So you can't lose what you never had. You can't lose what you never had. Was there even a conversation to say, hey, Darren Waller, what would you think about? Hey, Darren Waller, I know you're trying to come back. You thinking maybe, how about give us another chance? Hey, Darren Waller, take us back. Let's prepare this. Let's repair this relationship. Let's take another chance to get a do-over to see if we can do it better this time. Nothing but well wishes for Darren Waller. I wish he was still a Giant, though, if I'm being honest. And if he's not going to be a Giant, I wish they would have gotten more for him than a 6th-round pick. There's also been talk about Odell Beckham coming back and Odell Beckham rejoining this team. I think there was somewhere that it was reported that that Malik Neighbors would be really would be okay with the idea of Odell Beckham coming back. And my only response to that is, I mean, who cares if he's okay with it or not? If Odell Beckham came back, it wouldn't be to take Malik Neighbors' spot as the wide receiver 1. Odell Beckham's 30 plus years old now. He knows those days are over. He knows he's never going to be on wide receiver 1 for a team again, not on purpose. Right? He knows that those days are gone. So what would be the reason to what would be the reason for someone to have to check with Malik Neighbors to make sure he's okay with that? I'm sure Malik Neighbors, even if Odell Beckham was in his prime, doesn't feel threatened by Odell Beckham, because people with real legitimate talent and belief in self, they don't spend their time worried about other people. They're going about the business of being great. And I believe that's what Malik Neighbors has an opportunity to be. It's great. So I don't see him wasting time oh my gosh, what if Odell Beckham comes in and takes my touches? You know who should be worried about those things? The other wide receivers. The Darius Slaytons, the Wan'Dale Robinsons, the Jalen Hyatts especially. Those guys who are fighting for the other touches, right? Because we're not going to see Wan'Dale Robinson get 100 plus targets in a season like he did this past season. 140 targets, was it? We're not going to see that out of Wan'Dale Robinson. At least we shouldn't. You would think that those are going to go more towards Darius Slayton. And so that's going to be a reduced role for Wan'Dale Robinson, an increased role for Darius Slayton, or else why did you pay him? And then if they bring in Odell Beckham, now both of those guys have to think, okay, that's going to cut into our touches. But Malik Neighbors is the wide receiver number 1. He's not concerned with Odell Beckham and what he comes in. That should not stop Malik Neighbors from getting his targets. That should not it should not take away targets from Malik Neighbors. That's not how it works for the wide receiver 1. Now, it becomes whether or not I think Odell Beckham would be a good fit or a good addition to this wide receiver room. The answer is yes. But the answer is predicated on how healthy is Odell Beckham Jr. We saw him in Baltimore. When he was healthy, and he got targets because he didn't get a lot of them. When he was healthy and got targets, we saw that he could still be effective, a really effective chain mover. no longer the super explosive over the top guy. But if we're really being honest about it, that was never truly his game. That was never truly where he was spectacular. That just was where some of those highlights would happen, and then he would make things go crazy. But really, his gift was to be a rocket booster possession receiver, right? Like, or a possession receiver with a rocket booster, on it. So there's no reason why he can't still be a plus possession receiver. Now you put that next to Malik Neighbors, that's a great combination. That's a great combination, right? I think so. So I think from that standpoint, yeah, bring him in. Now, what are you giving up by bringing him in? And I don't mean by who are you cutting or who are you sacrificing. I mean, which player which player is going to benefit or take a hit in their production slash development because Odell Beckham is in the fold? It's probably not going to be Darius Slayton. He's been here long enough. Like, he understands, he's been in the league long enough. He understands how this works. He's got an old lady now, and not an old lady, but a young, ridiculously good looking lady in Anna Hall. He's settled, he's mature, he's a pro. But I can't say the same about Wan'Dale Robinson and what it might mean for his development, his production. I can't say the same for Jalen Hyatt and what it might mean for his development, for his production. I even look at the quarterback position and say, okay, well, if Jackson Dart is going to be the second or third team quarterback, and Odell Beckham is not working with the first unit, that means he's working with the second and third units. That's going to be Jackson Dart. Well, when Jackson Dart goes into the game, he's not going into the game to work with Odell Beckham. He's going into the game to work with the ones. Does that throw off the balance, the pH levels of the offense, right? Does it make it a little bitter? Does it make it a little sweet? Does it make it a little spicy? Like, what happens to this offense when you don't have the congruency or the continuity of quarterback to the guys who are in the, but then you get one guy who the quarterback was with, and it works out for those two, while all of a sudden it feels like that quarterback has started neglecting these other guys. And I know that's not what they want to happen. So it does matter to me. I'm asking these questions because I wonder how you go about handling these questions, these situations, and what they might find themselves in when they try to figure out how to make things work with Odell Beckham. I also think that the Giants can't afford to have a bunch of skill position guys who don't contribute on special teams. So it's like, if Odell Beckham is going to come in to be the third or fourth wide receiver, and he's not playing any special teams, so he's probably getting somewhere around 10% of the snaps, right? 10, 15% of the snaps. What is that going to do for Odell Beckham to try to join the team for a few? You know what I'm saying? Like, it doesn't bode well for Beckham. It doesn't bode well for those things. So I don't know. It feels like from a purely win a game tomorrow football standpoint, yes, bring me Odell. From a, how does this help with development? How does this help with the quarterbacks, with the other wide receivers, with Odell Beckham Jr. himself? I don't know. I still feel like Odell needs to be on a team that has an opportunity to play for something. I don't know. While I do believe this Giants team will be improved, I don't know if they'll be playing for something when that time comes. I think that matters a lot. So a lot of interesting, and I think the arguments or the I shouldn't call them arguments, but well, that's what they're called. The argument on both sides, whether or not to have an Odell Beckham or not to have an Odell Beckham. I think that both arguments are good. I think for me, the difference is going to come in what is the aim and or philosophy of this team. That's going to tell me whether or not an Odell Beckham Jr. makes sense for this team or whether or not he doesn't make sense for that team. Those are the parts that a lot of people don't talk about or they gloss over. And then when you look back and you go, well, yeah, that makes sense now. That was never a fit to what they were doing. So hopefully, again, shout outs to Odell Beckham, shout outs to the Giants organization, to the people who got this conversation stirring and all those jazz. Make sure you go to the New York Giants on SI. You'll see we've got pieces on Odell Beckham and those things. You'll see the article that talks about Malik Neighbors and how he would welcome Odell Beckham Jr. Back to New York. Um, I think that was written by our Patricia Trainer, but I could be wrong. You can also see the piece that was written about Odell Beckham on the New York Giants on SI, where it says, is Odell Beckham Jr. open to a return to the New York Giants? Again, that was back in June, 22nd of June. And I think that a lot of these things really come down to how we perceive them, how we perceive them within the moment. I think all of those things matter in one way or another, right? And so we'll see how those things go. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, make sure you go over to New York Giants or SI, check out everything they're doing over there. Make sure that you hit the like, make sure you hit the subscribe. I'm back. Support all the things that we're doing and everything that we got coming. Training camp will be here soon, and thank goodness we need football right now, right? We need more football. The UFL is over. We need more football, and so I'm just waiting to be able to bring it to you. Until then, I'm Coach Gene Clemons, and I have a giant issue.